Hi everyone, welcome to our digital culture event here at Cooper Parry. We're live on our webinar. We've just been frantically dealing with our technical issues, as you probably wouldn't expect, but we're all in the same boat from this perspective. Thanks ever so much for joining us. There's a few attendees joining as we speak. We've hopefully started at 9:03 as we expected, which is great. I'm Paul Hayes. My role here at Cooper Parry is Head of Digital Culture in our IT Solutions department, and I'm going to be hosting this the best I can this morning, so please bear with us. My head's really shining on this video, so I'm really conscious of that, so we tried to black out the windows, but that's not really worked, so ignore that for now. Okay, so we're dealing with social distancing. We're kind of a metre apart from each other. Abby and Vicky's going to introduce himself properly in a second, and we've got Richard on video call. Hand sanitizer is at the ready. So this event has evolved a lot over time, and you know, when we booked this back in December, it was a very different event to what it is right now and right today. So back then everyone was coming in here, we had a big stage behind us and everyone was going to be looking at us presenting on a stage, but that's not what we're doing right now. But we still wanted to bring something to you today. There's not many people in the office, a lot of people are working remotely, but what's important is that we're able to communicate and give you guys some input on what our digital culture is. So today the event is not about slides. We've ditched the slides, and actually today is largely about really having mostly a live Q&A. So we want to take the questions that you've already sent into us already. We want to take the questions that you're going to send into us live very soon and answer those most popular questions for you to really support you at this time. We're in a very strange time with the coronavirus. We don't want to focus on the negative stuff. We want to focus about what's positive and what we can do to support digital and digital culture right now. So in terms of what we're going to be talking about, as I say, it's all about questions and your questions. We don't want to be telling you what we think you want to know or what we want to tell you. We want to be telling you and talking to you about what questions you want answering. So how to ask a question? Nice and simple. You will see a very small icon on your system right now, which is a speech bubble with a question mark in it. If you click on that speech bubble, you can ask a question. Okay, when you also click on that, you'll open up a pane and you'll see all of our published questions that other people have asked that we've published that you can then vote on and like to say, you know what, I do want that question answered. So look at that, and that will hopefully guide us in terms of the questions that we're going to answer today. Moving on from there, I know that we have got well, we've got to make sure this event flows, and what's what we're really conscious of. So rather than just aiming these questions at just anybody, if there's anyone specifically you want to answer that question, please pop a name on there as well. So really important about today is getting into the nitty-gritty of what the stuff that we're all facing. Now, I know everyone's going to want to talk about remote working and digital remote working. Digital culture's more than just tools and tech, and more than just about how we can enable our people to work from home. It's about their well-being and their engagement. And we're okay right now. You know, what's happening is the kids haven't stopped school until next week. With the first week in, everyone's panicking about getting everybody working remotely. But what about when we're weeks and months down the line, and we need to consider everybody's well-being, consider keeping people motivated, and also considering, just as important, our clients, and making sure that our clients are getting the right level of service, the right level of support, the right level of response. So my background in IT is, I've been working in IT for around 20 years, and before the events that we're facing right now, I'm looking at digital and I'm looking at what we're offering as an IT solutions division, and it's exciting for the first time. I'm not a tech guy, but what I am is someone who likes to support businesses in doing well and being successful, and I think the tools and the digital environment we're in at the moment gives us that opportunity to help businesses be as successful as possible, and that's what's so energizing about the conversations that I'm having quite often with business leaders. So let's move on to getting into your questions. But first of all, everything that we talk about today, we need a little bit of guidance. So there are 5 themes. We're going to focus in around the 5 themes today, but we will answer your questions as I say. So those themes that we're going to talk about is what is digital culture? I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. You know, we might have a misunderstanding about what it actually means to us and what we think it is. So we're going to hopefully clear that up and support you with that. We're going to talk about the tools and tech, and Richard will cover that a little bit, as well as the Microsoft experience and how they're facing this crisis at the moment. We're going to look at making digital more human. So how do we engage all of our workforce, our diverse workforce, and whatever age level they are, etc. And we're going to look at then productivity and finally opportunity. We want to make sure that our people are working remotely, that we are getting the most from them, of course, and that they're feeling like they can give the most. So, and the opportunity at the other end is the positive side of this. You know, what does it mean for us as businesses? How is it going to reshape how we focus our businesses and how we deliver services to our clients moving forward? So before we get into our questions and those themes, I'm going to hand over to Abby just to introduce herself. Thanks, Abby.
Hi there, I'm Abby. So my role at Cooper Parry is I'm the Chief Digital Officer. What does that mean? So whereas Paul and Vicky, who will introduce herself in a minute, are focused on our clients outside of the business, my focus is on looking at our business and looking at how we get our teams within our business to work in a digital environment. How we get them to be productive and work together, how we look at our digital culture and making sure that that's kind of fit for the future world that we're now living in today. So Cooper Parry has Cooper Parry IT, but then also has experts in audit, in tax, in wealth management and in corporate finance. And I need to help those guys across those teams work effectively in this digital world. And that's obviously extremely paramount and being stress tested as we speak in this time. So that's my role. Vicky.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicky. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Cooper Parry IT. I've been in industry for my sins about 24 years, so obviously from an early age. I run the entire IT business and help our clients keep modern, particularly focusing on where we need to modernise business systems, where we need to modernise their data. So really passionate about helping our clients turn up the dial on their business using IT. So yeah, a geek through and through. So really hoping that you'll ask lots of questions and that we can help you today.
Thank you. Can we get Richard on?
Good morning, everybody, from sunny Bristol. Thank you for having me today. My name is Richard Ellis. I work for Microsoft in the UK and I run SMC business, which stands for our small, medium and corporate business. And thanks to Paul and Vicky and the team for introducing me today and bringing me here to talk about enabling remote work.
Lovely, thank you everyone. So I think we'll jump straight away into our themes and our questions as your questions keep rolling in. We've got Ben and Steve in the background who are looking at your questions, and we'll be posting them as and when they come in for you to like, and then we'll be asking those questions as well as we go through this process. So let's talk about digital culture, and I want just to ask Abby really is the very basic question of what it is. What do we feel that digital culture is?
Yeah, sure. So we all talk about workplace culture, which is clearly all about the kind of beliefs and attitudes and how people behave within an organisation and interact together. But what do we mean by digital culture? Well, that's about kind of how the emergence of new technology and disruptive technologies sometimes are changing the way we interact with each other and how we work together, sometimes in a positive way, sometimes maybe in a challenging way. And the digital culture is about taking what's absolutely unique about you and your business internally and making sure that that is fit for the future and works in a digital first world. And that's really the challenge that we've had in Cooper Parry for the last 2 years. We've been looking at how we do that ourselves. And, you know, right now, I guess, what I was going to talk about when we were originally doing this as an event and stand on the stages, I was going to give you some examples of what we've been doing internally within Cooper Parry to try and make our audit experts and our tax experts kind of to work in a slightly different way, and to think about how they interact and engage in a different way as the world's changing, using the new tools and tech that's available, but also using that to kind of engage and motivate at a different level. And that's dead important as we've got 5 generations in the workforce. And as we all kind of change the way we work in our consumer lives, and we want to bring that into our work lives. So that's what I was going to talk about, and I'm still very happy to kind of give you particular examples about what we've done at Cooper Parry, what we've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what our learnings are. If you want to ask questions on that, I can give more detail on that.
Ben, could you pull up the digital culture slide, if that's okay? Or Steve?
So while we try and pull that slide up, let me kind of try and explain then. So by digital culture, we're talking about how people behave and how people work in with these new technologies, and how we interact in a different way. And as I say, that gives loads of opportunity. It gives loads of opportunity to do things differently and make a step change in how we do things. Hopefully you can see a slide about to come up which kind of summarizes what we mean about digital culture and tries to kind of define, I guess, the topic. So the way I would classify this is there is loads written on this topic at the moment. Everyone's got an opinion on it, and I'm a bit of a geek on this topic myself, so I like to read a lot into what everyone's saying the future of work looks like, and in this time this week today, this seems more relevant than ever, because you know people are saying, and I think it's not over dramatizing the situation to say kind of the future of work is today. We're embracing it and having to do it right now, and that gives us an opportunity to say, how do we actually want to do it? How do we want to communicate? How do we want to work together? And for me, around the circle in the centre are the kind of are the words which I think are really important to think about right now as we move into this new world for the coming weeks or months or however long it takes, and ensure that we make a step change in the way we do this. So some of these words might seem a little bit conceptual or theoretical or a bit fluffy in today's environment when we're thinking about productivity and business survival. But my argument would be, if you think about kind of purpose and community and how we all kind of adapt and experiment, those words are so relevant right now. How we rally together, how we get through this, not just how we make the tech work and how we stay productive, but actually how we engage each other, how we work together, how we build the resilience. And all of businesses need to adapt right now to the current situation. And that means experimenting and learning. And all these words are absolutely key to a digital culture. And the words I've put around the edge of this diagram that hopefully you can see on your screens right now, that's for me how this kind of digital culture shows itself. So it's about your people internally, as we've mentioned a few times already this morning, but it's also about how you work with your clients, obviously, and your customers. How does your digital culture come through in the way you communicate with your clients, especially right now, more important than ever? And that comes across in your brand, and it needs to be aligned to kind of who you are as a business and the brand that you project out to the world, but also your workspace. Now, our workspaces are kind of changing. There's an office element to that normally, in normal circumstances, of course, but what is your workspace today? Your workspace is probably at home. It's the tools, it's the tech, it's the screens that you're using, but it's also kind of maybe your website or your, what are the elements of a workspace in today's environment? And all those things need to be aligned around your digital culture vision. and we'll come on to tools and tech, and they're definitely the foundation. But I think it's an opportunity for us to say, as we're embracing working from home tech and tools, how do we do it? How do we do it with purpose? How do we do it thinking about more than just productivity, but how do we do it thinking about how we're going to make sure our people are adapting and are resilient and are experimenting and have that sense of community?
Yeah, how they're engaged.
Definitely.
Really
yeah.
Hugely important. I mean, yeah, yesterday there was an example. I was in the office, and most of our team are working from home. They choose to do so, and two of the guys that came in, I just saw them saying bye to me at lunch, and they had two monitors in their hands off their desk, and they're taking them home to make their workspaces at home more useful, because they want to work from home and feel more comfortable. But we're all going to be facing environments, I guess, in our families where we've got older children, and there might be 3 or 4 of us working from home with loads of tech kit knocking around. What impact is that going to have on the environment when our kids stop going to school next week and they start going on their tablets? What's that going to do to the bandwidth and our infrastructure? So, yeah, tech and tools is important to get right, but absolutely the well-being part is hugely important as time runs on. Steve, how's the questioning looking?
We're getting some really good questions in. We've had a couple on these kind of subjects. One we've got from Paul Corcoran. He's asked, what is your view on working remotely with individual contractors and interns that are new to the business but not embedded in the business, and its culture due to their culture due to separation of location?
We've got this right now today. So we have some new starters to the business that are due to come online the first week of April. So considering what's happening in the news, then we need to think of a different way of onboarding those people, allowing them to have tech early, so to ship devices to them early, and to take out what would traditionally be somebody shadowing somebody else in that role into an online environment. And that's something that we've not done before, but the situation's forcing that. Fortunately, our tech and tools do support it, so we are able to work from anywhere, but it's thinking about things in a different way, something that is as fundamental as onboarding new starters, or like you said, contractors or people that are new to the business. Then that's we're having to think of new ways of doing that and making sure that we engage with those people, because they're not in front of us day in, day out. So it's definitely a different way of working.
I think normally we would wheel them out. They would be introduced to everybody around the office, and so like with everything, we've got to think a bit more creatively about, okay, well, how do we create that same experience, inclusivity? Abby, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Well, I was just thinking, if you tie that back to your consumer experience, these days you have lots of relationships, in inverted commas, with people that you're not physically close to, whether that's through kind of your social media or through forums that you're part of, or different kind of specialist groups. So there are examples in our consumer world, if you like, in our home life, where we can build quite good, quite strong relationships, and you quite quickly get a feel of kind of what is the culture of this forum or this group, and then I'm part of. And so because we've always, or traditionally, many businesses and many sectors have had a workplace where there's an office or there's a physical space to it, maybe we haven't necessarily tested those elements quite so much in a work environment. But I do think certainly generations coming through are kind of used to building relationships in different ways, and we probably need to bring some of that into the work environment now.
Yeah, and online, so that they're interacting with that online culture, that digital culture, as much as they would be with being in the office and having lunch with their new colleagues. It's super important for them to get that same experience.
So creating those almost informal moments. Yesterday we had some people in the office, we had a lot of people working remotely, but our people team had lunch with each other no matter where they were based. So they had their mobile phone put up next to them, asking each other what they're having for lunch, what they did this morning, and they just still had lunch together virtually no matter where they were. And it's little things like that we've probably got to create opportunities for people that aren't so engaged in the business and know
Absolutely.
the culture.
It's the social part, and I think we had a virtual beer last night, our leadership team, which was fantastic.
Nice.
You know,
Gin and tonic.
Yeah, well, it was beer actually all around. I think I had water actually. But the important thing was that we were getting together, we were talking socially, we were having them water cooler moments, and certain subjects were banned, and I think that's important. I think when you bring that back to new starters, we've got to bring them into that social environment and let them feel part of what we're doing to mix. Yeah. Steve?
Yeah, we have a great question. This was sent anonymously, but it's had the most votes. So how do I build a digital culture now and fast? I mean, these people want some info.
Yeah. So very relevant, because I think if we'd have been standing up and doing this event how we've originally intended, I'd have been talking about kind of how do you plan for a digital culture? How do you, what do you need to do now to prepare for that? What are the building blocks for that? And now it's kind of like, right now, fast, what can you do today? I would say if you're a business leader, and I know we've got many business owners and business leaders on this webinar today, think about how you are communicating and how you are behaving right now, what message you're sending to your people, to your teams, how are your managers communicating? Are they just looking at productivity, cash flow forecasting, scenario planning, or is there an element where we can bring in a sense of connectedness, a sense of purpose, a sense of how do we get through this together? How do we adapt and change together as a business? So that we can not only survive, but then, sounds cheesy, but thrive when the time is right, to be able to do that. So I think you can check yourself right now today in how you're communicating and how you're responding and coping with this situation that's evolving every single minute, and how your managers are doing that.
Sorry, Abby. Becky, could you drop a slide up if that's all right?
He's lying.
Thank you. Is there anything else on that, Abby? Sorry.
No, good.
So I was just going to bring a slide up, and again, I think the important thing is how do we do it quick and fast.
Click on, I think.
Let me just get this slide lined up for you. Okay, here, yeah. Okay, lovely. So you'll see a slide in a second. Here we go. So yeah, quick and fast is an interesting concept, but we need to do it, and that's what's important. The journey we would normally take people on is somewhat detailed in this document, which is how we work with our clients. And we haven't necessarily got time to, I'll take you through this process very, very quickly, but we haven't got time to step back on our vision and look at our existing tools. We're looking right now, okay, well, have we got tools to communicate and collaborate and actually just connect remotely as a starting point? But if we had time, yeah, we would have been talking to you about a very slow and ease approach, and really kind of tailoring that communication plan, looking at adoption and change, making sure we're communicating things at the right time. And a lot of this stuff is still relevant. And this is a document which we'll share with you all after this event, which will hopefully give you some pointers and guide around what to do and what really supports driving a digital culture into your teams. So there is very much a process, and we would always advise to kind of step back normally to say, okay, well, check in, let's not make any rash decisions. But we don't find ourselves in that space anymore. We find ourselves in a space where we need tools. What's the easiest thing to get in place? If we've got something in place, right, okay, we need to look at how we can embed that within our teams as quickly as possible. But this is, I won't talk too much about this document, but we will share it afterwards. And I think there's definitely a point where we can dive into this document and gain some intel around what we can do quickly to support our teams particularly as we move into next week.
We can see that some of our clients are moving fast.
Yeah.
So clients that haven't traditionally been able to take their business online or not needed to take their business remotely because what they do is they need it in the office, but you can see that they've gone off the mark quite quickly. They've got new devices where they had like traditional PCs, they've took laptops instead, like mobile devices, and switching on things that they've probably already had but not used.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they're switching on functions to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
But then the most important thing for me is to check in, that people are using it, check that people don't feel that their working day is any different to how it is when they're in the office, and make sure that culturally that everyone's in sync with each other. But there is some quick things you can do, and normally you have them at your fingertips. And as long as they've got the right devices to enable that from home, then there is some quick wins.
The daily huddles is huge. I think is just checking in with your team. If you're a line manager or you've got line managers in your business that you need to instruct and support, it's checking in every day. Let's just have a cup of tea together in the morning. How's everybody feeling? You know, the basic stuff that just says, right, I recognise that we're working together. This is a strange situation. Let's say hello, check in how you're doing. Anything I can support you with today, but do it virtually. Get everybody having a cup of tea together. I think is important. Steve, you?
Yeah, we've had some really good questions. We've got about 2 or 3 in here now, which is on the subjects that you're talking about. Dan has asked, how do you manage the security of systems and data with a remotely distributed workforce when they can control their physical environment, because they're often the first line of defense, the physical. So how do you control that?
That's a good question. So thanks for the question. I think I think there's several ways. That was Richard's. Richard's poking up. I'm gonna let Richard come in.
I can see you there, Paul. It's the virtual look for help down the camera.
I've got this. All right, but you carry on.
Well, it's a great question, and I saw it in the chat, and I was just thinking through it, and some of the stuff that Abby was mentioning earlier about how we act with our own personal kind of consumer tech, we need to bring further forward. But I think this concept of zero trust when you're outside the office is what needs to build inside organizations. So I think gone are the days when you can sit inside your office behind the company firewall or on the company network and feel your device is safe. It's really sad, but in this current time, we will have a lot of bad actors trying more than ever to take advantage of organizations. I think the work we need to do and help everyone with is to understand this concept of zero trust with your device, be it your phone, your tablet, your PC, and whether you're at home, the coffee shop, somewhere else, and how you build that your solutions around that. So we can put it in the links to this pool when we send it out. There are some great assessment tools on zero trust, just to get everyone to think about all the different parts that you will need to deal with now with people working remotely or working from home. But it does start from this kind of basic principle that just because someone's at home on their network doesn't mean you can trust their network. We're not all networking experts at home. We don't have the skills. But there are things we can do with the technology just to make it easier for everyone. So we can share those tips at the end, but it's a great question and one that people really need to think about, because security kind of needs to be top of our minds.
If I can just jump in while Richard's on the screen, which is great. We did have actually we've just taken him off, okay, but we'll bring him back. Sonia's asking about that, about the so on our point of a massive surge of people working from home in our businesses. And we mentioned the VPN in the UK will struggle. How can we best cope with this, as we've built a business where they have all files and networks and systems that can only access via the VPN?
Yeah, hey, that's the reality we're in. I think and I'll come on to it a bit later about some of the things that are going to help, but I think we have to acknowledge the world's been turned on its head overnight. And this is the reality of lots of organizations. You've got documents, files, folders, procedures, there are organizations we're talking to with systems that can only be accessed in the office. You can't even get to them via a VPN. So there's going to be a piece of work to be done to work out how do we begin to resolve that and allow people to work remotely or to work from different locations. I think when it comes to that, I think it's going to be step by step, system by system, and really beginning to piece it together and working together. I know CPIT Parry going to be able to help on this in terms of how you do this. I'm going to show you some of the things that can help. I don't want to say they're answers because they are things that will help later. But I think that ability to how you take pressure off individual systems, like one VPN that routes everyone together, we're going to need to, because we're not in a scenario that's going to last for 2 weeks. We're in a scenario that's going to last for a few months, based on the evidence that's being talked about today. So we're going to have to work out how we can do things that really scale to resolve that. So Sonia, it's a great question. I'd encourage you, whether you're in IT or with your IT leadership, just to ask about how you can begin to break down some of those silos and work out how you take pressure off some of the infrastructure.
Okay, really cool. Well, if we go back to our team, we've got a question specifically for them, following on from this, from Claire Wright. She said, how do Cooper Parry incorporate privacy behaviours and compliance within such a rapid growth industry? So I think they're asking for, well, how do we do it as a bit of a...
Yeah, good question. So how we do it, so we're a business that's largely Microsoft through and through, and we use a lot of the Office 365 suite, and in particular the Microsoft Security suite. So when we talked about the question before about security and how can we quickly ensure that we've got security in place for our remote workers, there's a lot you can do within the Microsoft suite. If you're using Office 365, Microsoft's EMS product allows us to switch on a lot of that functionality to help support our businesses and secure our businesses from things like phishing attacks and the like. I mean, that's the same whether we're in the office or out the office. But there are, in terms of what we do, in terms of Microsoft, we've deployed all those products, and we've also got things like Intune in place for mobile device management and encryption of devices. So covering the basics on encryption and managing devices when they may or may not be lost or stolen. That's dealt with within Microsoft suite of products, and that's how we handle it.
I was going to say, there's also a massive user behavior element to all of this, right, in terms of how are we talking to and educating our people about what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and not only in this environment today, but across using any digital tools at any time, and it becomes more and more important right now. So we do a lot of work and we'll continue to ramp up our work on security training, compliance training, so we're not putting our people at risk of doing something either by accident or unintentionally, but not realising that they're putting... You're right, Abby, the weakest link in the chain isn't normally IT. Yeah. It's normally between the seat and the computer. Yeah. That's the problem. So it's enabling those tool sets so that's doing a lot of the heavy shifting with regards to compliance. Yeah. So everything that we send out the door at Cooper Parry is automatically stored. Yeah. We have a lot of client data that's all protected by all of our security. Yeah. So we have lockdown with tool sets and take that to the nth degree with regards to what we have, but also really focus on not leaving devices open, not leaving computers in cars, culturally what they're doing, not allowing things like USB keys. So where we take it absolutely seriously, but the actual point around actual training of staff is more important than any tool set. Yeah.
You guys might have to forgive me because Claire's not letting you off the hook. She's followed up, you see. She's,
no, did not answer the question.
I'm not sure, but she said, Claire just come in and said, following on from that question, she said, do CPIT have guidance on BYOD behaviours or policies?
It means bring your own device for those people that don't know. Obviously she does. We do have guidance over that, and we have products that allow us to manage those devices more effectively. So the product that Paul spoke about was Intune, that allows us to monitor and to restrict those devices even when they're not corporately owned. So we do allow bring your own device at Cooper Parry, and we do allow that for our clients as well.
Cool.
Great. Shall we move over to Richard to talk a little bit through his or the Microsoft space right now, and what the stuff that they're facing as a business, both internally and externally with their clients, and how they're supporting. I know one of the things is free Teams free for 6 months, which which is supporting businesses out there, which I'm sure he'll touch on. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Paul. So welcome back to Bristol, on my salubrious home office as it is now. I'm in the spare bedroom. I'm sure lots of people are going to be able to empathise with this over the coming weeks and months. Luckily, my kids have not run in so far, so I don't want to say they won't run in, but there's a potential that we might get an invasion. Their school is already closed, so it's always a possibility. I've got a presentation today just to step us through how we can enable some of these working remote questions. And I'm going to pivot really on Microsoft Teams. But before I started, I just want to acknowledge this is all about enablement. Hopefully, lots of people who are on this call or who listen to the recording already have Microsoft Teams included in the technology you've got. And hopefully this might allow you just to see a little bit more about the depth of the solution that you can enable now that you've got more of your workforce working remotely. And for anyone who doesn't currently have it, when I get to the very end of the presentation, there are 2 ways of getting Teams for free right now, which I'll show at the end. And you can either work directly with Cooper Parry or you can work online, but it will show you the easiest way to do that. So this is about enablement, and we want everyone who needs Teams right now to be able to get it. So keep the questions coming. I'm going to rely on Steve, our handy question man, probably, because as the slides are up, I'm not sure I can see the questions, but we'll get going. And just to Paul's point, as I try and fire up the slides, bear with me 1 second. As I get myself moving, hopefully everyone can see the slides. This has been unprecedented for every business out there and everyone on the call, and I want to acknowledge that. This is so fast moving, it's disrupted everyone's lives first and foremost, let alone everyone's businesses. I know they're often intertwined. And we want to acknowledge that, and we are trying to do everything we possibly can. We have also been dealing with something that we haven't been through before. So we have the vast majority of our global workforce now is working remotely, including our head offices in Seattle, and we're learning lots ourselves. And we are trying to publish that as much as we can on our blogs online to share directly with our customers and partners exactly what we're learning, and we want to learn from other people. We do not have all the answers to this. We are just trying to learn as we will go through this huge transformation in how we have to work and support the community as we go through this outbreak. As we go through this on Teams, just one other thing to say, you would probably not be surprised if I said that Teams has had a pretty big surge in its usage over the last few weeks, particularly when Europe woke up to being the epicenter of this virus. Obviously, usage has shot up. We've been managing to build new capacity into the system at the fastest rate we possibly can, and keeping uptime as fast as possible, or uptime as high as possible for everyone. But you may occasionally you may see a glitch, and I think Paul, you were touching on it earlier. Sometimes that might be your home broadband, it might be your company network. I just think during these times, the one lesson we've learned in the past few weeks is be patient. Be nice to your IT teams, or if you're in IT, give yourself a pat on the back, because this is going to be stressful at times as we begin to do things. And the question earlier about all my files are in one place, down one VPN, I've now got everyone at home firing down that line. How am I going to deal with that? I think we're just going to be patient and nice to each other, because these things will take some time. But hey, I'll jump into the slides. This is designed as enablement, just to show you what's in Teams. Some of you might be thinking, hey, Rich, I've got this. Some of you might find some of this really useful in terms of what's out there, but it's to give you a sense as to what is in Teams and some of the depths of the solutions. So Teams, it is the hub for teamwork. We think this is much more than just a conference calling solution or a video solution. Those solutions can be great now when you need to connect people voice to voice. But actually what we found in the coming weeks, and we found this coming out of China from companies we're dealing with, is actually you need to you'll move very quickly from the paradigm of we need to meet remotely and we need to talk and see video, and you'll be in the scenario very quickly of, all right, now how do we do the work? How does the work get done? And that's where Teams really comes in. It is meant to be a hub for teamwork within our Microsoft 365 family. You'll see on the screen as I begin to click, it's about meeting chat, so it's that full video voice chat experience. It's about how do you do that. You can even bring in telephony. I'm sure Cooper Parry can talk to you about what you can do with telephony. So you can bring in numbers to dial outbound and have inbound numbers, all based within Teams. So again, goes back to that question. If you're going to close an office and you have a telephone system that is based just in the office, you can think about how you can supplement that with Teams or do something else with it. So it is possible to do that. There was a question earlier on files. What are we going to do about files? When you enable Teams, there's that ability to bring your files and your content with you, but then center them around the work and the team that's happening with those files. So you can see on the screen there are really simple examples as to here you can see where the Northwind Traders team have their marketing folder, and in there, right next to their conversation, they have all the files. Super easy for people to find. You can also, that could be links to files rather than the actual files. So really easy to bring that together for people in an intuitive way. And then we'll come on in a second and talk about just apps and workflows, but this can even come down to scheduling shift work or scheduling cover inside the app itself with our shifts application. Again, we found in the last few weeks, this is for organizations who weren't even thinking about shift work, but people who now need to cover office space or things in a different way with a shift mentality are finding that useful. So this is the ability of where teams can really start to transform the workplace. You can build very rich conversations. You can even bring in business process straight into Teams, into one experience. I should say, as we go through this, you have the ability to run Teams across your PC, your Mac, your Android iPhone, your Android phone or your iPhone, whatever tablet you want. And the question that came up earlier on bring your own device. Obviously, you can still use Teams in a secure way and bring your own device with the technology that Vicky and Paul were talking about earlier. And it is that ability to have that single platform where they are. There's also the that point that came up earlier about providing the security and compliance that sits behind Teams. It is fully integrated into Microsoft 365. So that ability to secure it with the same tool set that you're using for your email and for your login environment, you can actually apply to Teams and just make sure you're providing that right level of security as you go. So just to step through it, someone was asking earlier just about the cultural side of this. I think this is probably one of the most important things as we go through this at the moment. I love the story earlier about the team lunch happening at Cooper Parry, where you've got some people in the office, some people are virtual, or the team beer, but you want to make conversations inclusive. We're doing that ourselves internally as well. We're finding we tried it on Monday, actually, a team lunch. We had 35 people turn up. It's actually that's probably not a team lunch, it's probably a team party. It got pretty noisy pretty quickly, but we're learning, and I think it's about driving what's inclusive at the moment. So how do you drive an inclusive conversation? How do you add people in? And how do you make sure everyone feels included? This is going to be about more than just work. I'm sure there are people sat on the sofa right now at Cooper Parry who'd like a good GIF when it comes to Teams. We need to get people in the mindset that it should be fun as well, and driving that inclusivity. The team engagement piece. The question that was asked earlier: how are you going to onboard? How are you going to onboard new people? How are you going to have new hires? We've got that challenge too. We're working through the onboarding experience. Also, if you've got contractors or interim staff, I think there are lots of things you can do in tool sets like Teams to build that onboarding and on-hire process, and actually work out how you can connect people more together. And in fact, we were looking at scenarios where often when you join a new business, one of the challenges, someone gives you a whole bunch of things to learn and train on and says, there you go, learn that. Well, actually now, in our current scenario, there are some great opportunities for people to be able to learn online and learn via a digital platform. So I think we need to try and take some of the positives we have out of our new way of working, and how do we use a platform like Teams to do that. You can see on the screen now, it's talking through how you can even send praise to people, and you begin to show the love to people even when you're in that digital context. And I think, Abby, you were saying this earlier about we're kind of used to this in our social networking tools in our personal lives, but this is going to cross into work, right? Work is a big family for us, so we need to make sure we're doing this. The next part here is town halls, a bit of an American term. Town halls or live events. We're in a live event at the moment. For those of you who are wondering, you might be sort of thinking, how do I do this for my own team or my own company meetings, my own town halls, or even how do you use this platform to reach your customers? We're doing a Teams live meeting at the moment. It is included as part of the Teams offering that you'll have access to. You can have thousands of people turn up. I'm not sure Steve's going to tell us I don't think we're going to have thousands today, but you can have thousands of people on this platform, and you can schedule these things. And you can see today, the Cooper Parry team have got a great way of doing this, where you can see slides, you can see live video, this is all achievable to you as a digital business. I think this is the point Abby was making earlier. Even if you think you're a traditional business, you can do these things today. So client engagement, running, if you are a business that runs seminars on business practices, if that's your go-to-market, absolutely encourage you to do this on Teams live meeting. Cooper Parry can help you with that. We can show you how to do it. If Steve's got any hair left after this as well, he might be able to share some expertise about how to run a live event. This is, but this is absolutely possible, and we're doing this all the time on the platform. And then the last one on this one is just that ability to meet with anyone globally and bring people in and drive Teams meeting. Absolutely crucial for some businesses right now with supply chain and how you're going to connect with disparate teams. That ability to be able to bring people together is going to be absolutely huge. And this goes into cultural transformation that Teams is just an enabler of. It's going to come down to your people as to how they're going to do this. I'm going to whistle through some of this. I think the best thing is to get back to some of the questions. We will share the deck and the content, but all of these things you can do within Teams around projects. So that ability to create a team around a project, begin to share information. Some of our operations teams love this. Sometimes it can drive me nuts. They love to assign tasks and deadlines with Planner. If you've not used Planner before, it's a great way of keeping a team on track. You can assign tasks, you can complete them, and it's a great way of bringing a team together. Again, it's all natively built inside the tool. That ability to schedule meetings is pretty straightforward. And then the ability to collaborate on documents. I'm sure some people have been exposed to this already inside your environments where you're working. If you haven't been involved in co-collaboration of documents on the fly, and you've got kids at school, just ask your kids. The kids will help you. My kids are brilliant at this. They couldn't think of a different way of doing it. So collaborating on documents actually in Teams is really straightforward. And again, that ability to take meeting notes. And again, someone who was asking a question earlier about security and compliance, the more you can do within the platform, the more you can keep things secure. So rather than keeping meeting notes in a separate file or on your computer that you might lose, or that computer might suffer an issue or have a virus, you can actually use Teams to create the meeting notes. And that means whatever device you go to, whether you go to your phone, your tablet, or your PC, you can always get back to those meeting notes. So super easy way of keeping them all together, but also making them available for the entire team. So really straightforward, and a bit of a power tip if you ask me about how you begin to put a business together. So that's the kind of people, projects, and the process. Remote working best practices. Look, Microsoft, we've got some ideas. We've learned a lot through this, and we're going to keep sharing what we've learned. These are some of the major things that are out there. I think everyone on this call is going to have ideas and really great solutions coming from your own organizations. I think, Paul, you were touching on it earlier. You got to start with the basics. You got to start with making your workplace as comfortable as possible. I don't mind admitting my house is super cold right now, so I'm a real man's man. I use a hot water bottle to keep myself warm, and I'm sat at my desk for a long period of time. It's my Vicky. You can laugh. You can laugh, but it is a pro tip. If you're sat there for long periods of time, but then we need to coach everyone to say, just because you're working from home doesn't mean you can work 8 till 6 sat in one chair all day. You've got to schedule breaks. We had a team just this week who scheduled whilst observing social distancing, they scheduled their team meeting as a walk. So they all got their mobile phones out, they all used Teams, they stuck their headphones on, and they went for a walk together. Super cool idea. They were out for an hour. It was a team huddle, really easy to enable on Teams. You can have camera on, camera off. But I just think all of these things are really easy to begin to get into. But we'll send the links when we send the content out, and you can get to them all, and they all sit there. I know it's been a whistle-stop tour. The most important thing for me right now is lots of you listening are going to have Teams already included in what services you're procuring from Cooper Parry. And this is about enabling them. So I know Cooper Parry would love to help people right now turning Teams on. Microsoft are there to support Cooper Parry with your needs as to how you do it. If you don't currently have Teams, we do have free trial offers at the moment to enable you to turn it on. We don't want this to be a barrier to entry for anyone right now in terms of everyone who needs to leverage Teams. It's about enabling businesses. Our cultural mission and our company mission as a culture is to help our customers and our partners develop and build their businesses, and that's what we want to do right now. So that's the intent of today, is to show a the power of Teams, and secondly just that enablement, how it's available, how you can get hold of it. If you've already got it, it's a question of turning it on, and if you don't, the Cooper Parry team can absolutely help and do that. And we'll make these slides available so you can see them, and any questions I would send you either to Cooper Parry or back to our Microsoft 365 blog for tips. And I suppose just before we cut back to the Cooper Parry sofa, the one thing I'd also say that's really important is, as much as possible now, when information is changing as quickly as possible, it is to go back to the websites to look for information, because our tips on home working will change. Some of our guidance will change. It's moving so quickly. That's one of the best ways to stay up to date, or keep talking to Cooper Parry, talk to Microsoft, and we are there to help. So I want to say thank you for the opportunity this morning to jump through that, and hopefully there's some more questions, but hopefully this will help people keep businesses going and stay connected, and as we said earlier, make sure that people can keep talking to each other and keep collaborating and working. And jump off the slides. Paul, I'll probably hand back to you.
Yeah, I'm in. So thanks, Richard. Thanks for going through that. I think it's important to recognise that we've all got this at our fingertips, but also important to recognise that not everybody's using the Microsoft suite, and we have some questions in about that as well.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people have now asked about, well, they just simply don't have Teams. So making the assumption that they don't want to take up the free trial and enabling this, what else can we ask them to do?
Do you want me to?
Great.
So we're obviously Microsoft fans, so we've been using the tech for a while, so we would recommend that. But there are other products on the market that you can look at. So there's Google have a suite of applications that allow collaboration. There's some easy tools from Dropbox if files is where you're struggling. So if files are trapped on file servers and you need to enable those to be out for everyone to use, then you can use products like Dropbox, and there's free versions of those if you need to get that up and running ASAP as just a quick fix. There are some very rudimentary workarounds. So if you have a device in the office, like a PC, with all your applications and your files all on there, there are ways of remoting into that actual physical device from another device. So you can actually get to your work laptop via, you get to your work PC via a home laptop. So it's just a question of talking to your IT, or we're happy to help, is that you can, there's ways around if things are so locked down that you just need to get your work PC from another place, then there is ways. We do recommend moving to the cloud, but there are quick fixes in times like this that necessity might be the answer.
Yeah. It's probably also worth saying as well, there's loads of kind of different people engagement tools outside of Microsoft Teams. So things like Facebook Workplace and various things like that. They're not really working spaces as much as kind of engagement spaces, and right now we obviously need to be able to work as well as engage and communicate and motivate. So there's lots of different tools on the market, and they all kind of focus on, or many of them focus on different areas.
Yeah.
As Vicky said, we've used Microsoft Teams internally within Cooper Parry for the last couple of years now, and we've managed to drive up a good level of usage internally, but it's taken lots of different ways for us to actually do that, and that means that we can work there, but we can also kind of communicate and collaborate and engage and motivate via using Microsoft Teams, but there are other ways of doing that.
It feels like that there's an answer. The offer from Microsoft with regards to having the application for free is really easy to set up, but there will be some instances where they've got all of their systems behind a firewall with traditional equipment. There's ways around it. Yeah. So you just need to talk to us and we can help.
Yeah.
Lovely. Shall we? I think we're about an hour in now, and while you're asking questions, we'll stay here and keep answering them. I want to get away from kind of tech and tools specifically now, so if we can drop back into the slide and just remind ourselves where we are in terms of the themes. That's just coming up in a second. Bear with us.
As you're doing that, I just wanted to point out that Claire writes. She's kept us on our toes today. She just wanted to say thanks to Rich, but also she's saying that she's a recent Teams convert, and because of the immediate need, but actually now she's just going to, it's sensible to implement this long term. So she.
It's pretty cool, Claire. Really.
Yeah. And we do have, if you're moving into the making digital more human, we have a couple of points on that.
Yeah, so just checking in on that now. So let's move into, we're about halfway through, and I think we've covered off digital culture and tech and tools in quite a bit of detail. It'd be nice to talk about making digital more human, and I don't know if we've got any questions around that right now, but I think, you know, I mentioned right at the start here is that it's all right having technology, whatever it might be, but how do we help our people right now, rather than some staged training over a period of months, understand how to use it and make it more relevant. Why does it need to be scary when it can be something that can be embraced? Abby, I'm sure you've got some stuff
there was
on this.
something I was going to point out earlier. Actually, when we had the question about security, we ended up talking quite a lot about this idea of zero trust, which there was little alarm bells going on in my head, because we were talking about zero trust from a security perspective, and locking down devices and making sure they're secure and firewalls. But what we've got to be careful we don't switch to in this world of many of us and all of us working kind of remotely is a concept of zero trust of our people. In terms of how they work. And I think making digital more human is where, for me, we get away from using kind of tools and techniques to spy on people, to micromanage people, to check in on people that when they are at home they are actually working, and we actually look at how we use these tools and how we use this tech and this new way of working to actually engage with people, motivate people, but trust them.
It's quite the opposite, isn't it? It's 100% trust. And from our people perspective, if we go in anywhere different to that, suddenly, you know, we're checking in and relationships aren't working.
Totally. Your culture starts to actually kind of fall apart, because where you trusted people and let people get on with it when you could physically see them, now you can't physically see them because they're working from home. Suddenly they feel isolated, and then they're being micromanaged, and that's obviously not where we want to go with this. We want to use this as an opportunity to step change the way we all work, and actually see this as a way of embracing that kind of concept of the future of work right now for a positive, and give us all more flexibility in our lives. And we need that flexibility right now. We may well be juggling childcare, juggling caring for people that are sick. It's a reality of the situation we're in right now. And so I think that aspect of human, and making sure that there's the human aspect to digital and the tools and tech that we're engaging with is so important right now. So it's kind of 100% trust there, not zero trust, which is on the security side.
Maybe for you, Abby, do you think that if we spend months, weeks and months in this current situation, and do you think life will be different afterwards? Do you think people will go back to how it was, or do you think that some certain elements will stay?
I had that debate with one of our relationship partners yesterday, actually, who's been working as an audit relationship partner for many years, and you know, he was asking that question because it is a kind of landslide moment, isn't it? It's one of those moments where the world has changed. Will it ever go back? It may be that, and I hope personally that everybody embraces the digital ways of working, sees how productive it can be, sees how positive it can be and how flexible it can mean that we can all live our lives going forward, and we focus on kind of purpose, and we focus on why are we doing all this anyway, and times like this make you ask those kind of deeper, meaningful questions, don't they, about what's it all about and why are we doing all this. And I think if businesses are galvanizing their people around that mission of what are we doing all this for anyway, and what is the bigger picture, it's not just about being number one here or hitting this number then, but what is the impact in the world? How do we make life count, as we say in Cooper Parry? And what is it all about? I don't think we can ever go back to presenteeism, assuming that everything has to be face to face. But the relationship partner I was talking to yesterday's view was, but equally people might go, well, if this is the way work's going to be going forward, and me staring at a screen all day and having a headset in and doing Teams calls all day, do I want to work in this environment? Is this me going forward? And it is a great question. It's going to be interesting to see how people react to it. But I think we need to make the best of it. We find all the ways to do all the human side of digital ways of working, so it still does feel engaging when we haven't got the choice. And I hope that many of those practices we build now, and the kind of the new ways of working we build now, will actually probably stay with us when we come out of social isolation, and we can go back into the office.
I think it's forcing our hand to do the things that we've perhaps not wanted to do previously, but hopefully we'll all start seeing the results of what we're doing. I hope it's not a thing that we think, okay, we need to enable people to remote work because we need to get through this situation where we are now, but rather looking at it in a sense of, you know what, we're having to do this, but let's embrace it and let's see what this does for our business and what will it mean if we. I don't think business will go completely and truly back to normal. I don't think everyone will just bring those monitor screens back in and put them on the desk and start working as normal. I think there'll be a more of a mix, and I'm hoping businesses out there will realise that there's a, you know what, this can work for us. This works for our people. They feel engaged and they feel motivated, even though they're there. And I've been really worried about that previously, but actually we've proved, and I've been forced for it to be proved that it works.
Maybe give people just more choices, comfortable choices. In the future. I suppose it depends how long it's going to go on for, as to how habitual it becomes to people. So if it is months, then people will become more and more used to one way of working, and probably rejoice coming back together once we all can. But I think people will be given more choices.
And different sectors will be able to embrace this totally differently. Different sizes of organisation will have different challenges right now and how they make this work for them. So but I think there's a massive opportunity going forward to ensure that we Richard talked about inclusivity a little bit, and what he was saying about that digital culture, and there's a massive opportunity to drive kind of diversity of talent and experience through more flexible working, because no longer is your talent pool restricted to a 30-mile radius of your office or what's commutable, and suddenly your talent pool opens around the world virtually, because you know what's important to do face to face and what isn't, what can be done just as effectively remotely. And I think that's a massive opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity, just looking at it differently.
Steve?
We're getting a stack of questions about people. We've got one here from, I've got a question from Ollie and a question from Simon. It's very, very similar. They're both using Microsoft Teams, and they're having onboarding issues, trying to get people working remotely, trying to get them to buy into working on board. So any advice for that? And then the other question, which is very similar, is that they have a challenge with less tech savvy or traditional people using it. So I think they're looking for advice on how to get people on board.
I think it's getting the touch points right. So if it is all just work, then it can be a little dry and unfamiliar. So it's around, we have some engagement tools where we go back to Teams to congratulate people and just book rooms in old world. We had to go to Teams to do those things. So it's kind of having the right relevant touch points, as well as using it as a hub for working. One of the things that we've been doing to get people to come into Teams when we're working in a remote environment this week is, I don't know if anybody's watched the program Taskmaster, where every morning somebody is the Taskmaster on Teams, and then we set something that, as Rich brought up earlier, something fun for somebody to do. So it's a competition for our team to just get involved in, post a video, post a picture, something funny, where it makes them feel comfortable about using the technology because they're using it for something fun other than work. So I think it's about getting those touch points back in to make new users and maybe some people of different generations that aren't used to changing their work practices a reason to come back and to use the technology for non-work activities.
Yeah, and we've had that challenge even before the corona kind of crisis we're in at the moment of you know, we've got everything in Cooper Parry from traditionalist generation to Gen Z. And probably the biggest group in the middle of millennials, as is probably the case in many of your businesses, and trying to get those different generations to embrace a collaborative tool. But sometimes I find we use generations as a bit of an excuse, because sometimes it's someone's mindset and attitude rather than the generation they might fall into as to whether or not they're comfortable having a go, learning something new, and unlearning something that's no longer that relevant in this world. So, you know, personally, I'd love to unlearn how to use email, because if we can get out of our email more into a collaborative tool where you can thread conversation, you can work differently, you can work across teams, across functional teams, across hierarchy levels within an organization, and a different level of transparency of information. Businesses talk about the collective knowledge of a business, and I think that's really, really interesting. We've got an opportunity to kind of use that collective knowledge while we're all working together differently, but it takes people go on their own journey of how they're going to embrace it, and right now they're being forced to embrace it. We've had a series of kind of change agents, if you like, who we call our digital disruptors in Cooper Parry, because our why and our purpose is about lead, disrupt, and make life count. So we've used the disruptors, our digital disruptors. I was at Vodafone before joining Cooper Parry, and we used to have a team of digital ninjas there, and they were basically the same. It's change agents who are there to help people in each team, no matter whether you're working out how to set up a Teams channel, or how to post something in Teams, or how to set up a client meeting using Teams. But your bunch of change agents across the business are the ones, the go-to, the buddy, if you like, that you can just ask those silly questions of, and that makes a massive difference.
The mobile client makes
really
a big
easy.
difference as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So having it installed on people's mobile devices is like a cut down, simplified version that, like, even for the non-tech savvy, that's kind of an easy place to start. So it's and it's very engaging, so that if they're doing something, they can take a picture on their mobile and post it straight on, or they can just comment really easily from the device. So I'd say if the people are using it and they have a certain amount of people that are struggling, which then the mobile client really helps.
That made a massive shift in our usage internally.
It did here, didn't it? As soon as we switched that
whether
on,
they're, you know, accountants, tax experts, whatever generation, it made a massive difference.
There are, of course, basic tools out there as well, digital enablement platforms and learning management systems that can give step-by-step training for individuals that have just been emailed this week and say you need to use Teams from now on. It's a scary place to be, and if you need that very core basic training, we'll be posting a Teams demonstration after this event, and we can also post links. Microsoft provide a lot of collateral around, okay, follow this interactive demo, but we can also help with hooking you up with a digital enablement platform that really just look at the way that people work and how you want them to work, just as importantly. So if you want people to be collaborating in a certain way, you can set a digital enablement platform to say, I want them to be doing this, and if they're then being watched by artificial intelligence, and if they're not doing it, it prompts the little pieces of training to help them support that. So there's tools out there as well as the kind of the softer side.
Cool. I think it's I think what's really good is we've created a bit of a community monster on the chat, which is great. So,
Good.
so loads of people are making comments now. So if you are watching this, take time to go down the Q&A, because people like Ollie who are making suggestions on what we can do about screen sharing and recording, and other people are making comments too. So we may not answer all of those or highlight them right now, but please take the time to go down the side and have a look at those. How I've done that, I've scrolled away from the question I actually wanted to ask you about people. So I know. I've got two for you. I will get to it. I'll talk amongst yourselves.
Do a little dance.
We could do, yeah.
What's your task from today?
Taskmaster.
The task today is for them to video a rap, a song, or a dance to a song that most depicts themselves. So there's going to be some amazing stuff that comes out.
I'm really scared about that.
Sounds horrible.
And the funniest wins. So there's going to be props and all sorts of things from generally around the house. So
yes.
I
guess though, with that, there might be many people on this webinar thinking, oh, that's kind of all very well, but I just need them to be working. We're in survival mode here. I'm doing cash flow forecasts, scenario planning. It's about productivity. It's about getting onto work, and all the nice stuff can kind of happen later in a different time. And I totally get that, because we're all feeling quite anxious about our own business and other businesses that family members might be part of, and we're getting horrible news all the time about what's happening around the world. And there is an element of productivity is absolutely key, but we have got to make space for that social connection right now more than ever, and
we have a lot of young
important.
People, so we have a lot of young people where sending them out on their own is to
the parents' house in their bedroom
is alien to them, and that without the engagement, so we want them to be maximum productivity as much as what they would be when they're sat at their desk talking to customers. We want them to have the same engagement with customers when they're at home, potentially in the bedroom or their parents' dining room or something that's unfamiliar. So having that time down from that gives them something that to look forward to in the morning, that what's the task today, so that we feel that we're all still a team, but we're out everywhere and anywhere. So it's striking that balance, and everyone, myself included, we're all worried about what the economy is going to, what this whole situation is going to do to our own business and all of our clients' business. But it's making sure that we're rock solid as a team and trying to use the tech to enable that.
As you go into it,
I think you might.
Everyone's in it together.
Yeah, and I think you might have answered the question I'm about to ask you, because I think it's quite important. He said, Joe has asked, we have a working together cross-organisational group of frontline employees. Do you have any advice with regards to what I could do, usefully ask them to feed back to us to check connectiveness and ways we can improve?
Maybe talk about how's it going.
And we use something internally called How's It Going, and we have a flavour of it for our clients, where every single week we ask every person how their week's been. Very simply, they score that between 1 and 10. If they score, I think 7 or below, they have to make a comment. So there's a very easy starting point. That's like also a weekly check-in. I am, like I mentioned earlier, I love the work, what we should be doing around huddles and coming together as teams, and probably doing that on a daily basis and having a cup of tea with people and asking them how they're feeling. I think you need to do that on a one-on-one basis as well, just so you get honesty from people, which is just as important as well. But there's basic tools, and we have an app called How You Doing, and they ask that question, and what you tend to get back in then is a load of input, and you're looking for themes then of how are people generally feeling, how is this feeling, and depending on the feedback, of course, you get a nice view every week of what's working and what's not working and what you need to address. And it's important that you get that feedback and you do something about it. Of course, it's not about getting the feedback and going, oh, things are great, let's celebrate things being great, or things aren't very good and this is an issue for multiple people, let's address that issue. And that's, again, your people seeing that you're doing that makes a real difference.
Regular check-ins is more important now than ever, because people are feeling anxiety levels are through the roof. Maybe they've got families who are ill or worried about grandparents
Yeah.
and parents. I put myself into that camp.
Yeah.
So I think the more check-ins that you feel that you're getting from people around you, the more support. That there can't be too much of that.
Yeah.
So the how's it going is anonymous too. So if you do have people that don't like to raise their hand about things, that this allows them to anonymously tell the leadership team, the owners of the business, how they're feeling. So it's a really good touch point, but probably feels that weekly, as that application allows at the moment, isn't enough.
Yeah.
Right now.
But not at the moment. Not with everything that's happening, because we all know
It's
that
changing
things,
daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, minute.
What happened yesterday is not going to be what happens today. So
Yeah.
it feels like that should be how's it going daily.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just checking.
And
Yeah.
checking in with those individuals, and I think we've got to start considering our support mechanisms in the background. So what if someone has got anxiety about X and we want to help them through it? What are we going to be doing as businesses? And that's a whole subject, of course.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think personal well-being, people well-being, but then, like you say, checking in with our clients and how we can use these tools and tech to communicate differently with our clients. We can't necessarily arrange the face-to-face meeting that we would normally have with them, or they're obviously head down, focused on cash flow forecasting and survival for their business and adapting quickly. But how do we continue to check in with them on a regular basis in different ways now? Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I hate to jump back on tech, but for tools and tech, but this is actually a really good question from Dawn. She's saying, what are the tools to gain access to large files which sit on studio servers? Most files we have are on the cloud, design files for a studio server. We're aware of Team Viewer, but this is a rather large annual cost commitment. We might want to transfer files from the cloud that are so large. So is there there's something else I could consider?
There's products like WeTransfer that where you that upper end of files where there's a lot of megabytes and gigabytes of data, then there are other tools that will speed that up quite a lot, and that's not an expensive tool to utilize. So I'd recommend WeTransfer there.
Cool beans.
And the paid for version of Dropbox.
Excellent, good answers. So how do we measure how successful these new ways of working are to determine what the new norm might be?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody knows right now, because all the goalposts and rules have just changed, right? And we're all adapting and working out what good looks like in this new world. So I mean, how we've measured it up until now, we've internally within Cooper Parry been looking at the level of usage and kind of adoption of the tools, and then we've been looking at kind of how we drive that and set ourselves a target on a monthly basis, and we've set ourselves a threshold of making sure people were using Teams daily, which was more of a choice, obviously, as of last week, whereas this week and next week it's almost it's essential. So I assume, as Richard's seeing with Microsoft globally, the usage of Teams is shooting through the roof because it now becomes a necessity instead of an option. So usage and adoption is definitely a measurement. There's the measurements that we talked about before on people engagement, which is more about kind of how's it going, how you're feeling, more well-being type measurements. I think that we shouldn't forget around measuring the effectiveness of digital ways of working, and then ultimately, you know, when we all can come back out of our homes, or we can kind of go back to business as usual, do these things stick? That's got to be the ultimate measure as to whether or not this new way of working is here to stay. When the habits formed, do we go back to assuming we need a face-to-face meeting for every meeting, and we have to come into the office and our people need to be where we can see them and they're working? Or do we actually go, hey, you know what, productivity was pretty good when people were working remotely, and they could be flexible and they could work around all the other things going on in the world right now? What of those aspects can we actually build into our culture? And that, for me, is what we mean by a digital culture.
I think it's in some roles as well. We might look at, are we going to get less out of our people? through working remotely, but actually we could well get more.
Totally.
You know, people aren't traveling anymore, so therefore there's more time to sit in front of your computer, and quite often, you know, I do it, you know, I went through most of the day yesterday and realised I didn't have a drink of water, because you sit there in that seat all day, and I need to practice what I preach and get myself out there walking and have a break.
Yeah.
But what it means is I'm drilled into my machine. I'm in front of my machine, and I'm delivering work.
Yeah.
We absolutely need to endorse breaks and doing the right thing, and that's really, really important. But
yeah, we've got to make this sustainable, and if we all kind of stick to our screen the whole time, we're going to have bad backs. We're not going to get outside. We're not going to do the exercise.
The workspace. So working at the kitchen and then having a defined work and home.
Yeah.
I think there's work to be done to be able to separate those two things. Otherwise, my productivity has gone. I'd say that I'm more productive because I'm more focused.
Yeah.
But that may have a negative impact on my own well-being over time, because that's not sustainable. So
you forget to look after your pets and all sorts. Don't you?
Set the dog. You become so engrossed that I think it's good to have separated areas to be able to work.
True.
Yeah.
It's good to know that people haven't forgotten that Richard's online with us as well. Someone has asked him a question. So Richard has been asked by Sonia, is there a tool that we can use where we can control somebody else's computer? They're not in IT, but they feel the need to be helpful and go onto their computer to do training with them to help them remotely if they need to.
Thanks, Steve. There are loads of different tools for this. I think back to that point, there are some Microsoft ways of doing this. There are other tools out there. I think, Sonia, that question is one for your IT team, the one they feel most comfortable with how they do this. I think one of the things, actually, just a personal story, I had the nightmare scenario. My nephew's Wi-Fi went down over the weekend. They live a long way from us. It was like, oh God, how do I do this? And you got that whole moment of trying to solve it for them and everything else. Really simply, he said, hey, let's just FaceTime this. And that's from the 14-year-old. And the 14-year-old held his phone up so I could see what was on his PC to tell him what settings to click. That's a stupidly basic way of doing this, but I think it's a great example where kids just get resourceful and say, hey, what is this? So that's the kind of like in the moment. You can screen share within Teams. You're going to expect me to say that. I work for Microsoft. You can screen share within Teams. There are loads of other tools. But I think it goes back to that other question around how do you help everyone through this? And Abby was talking about digital ninjas or people who are adopting this. I would also advocate, I don't think it's an age thing. I don't think it's anything to do with a particular group. Some people just get there faster than others and then help everybody else. And just as we're looking for in society, everyone to lean in and help people, I think from this digital side, we just need to lean in and help. So if you're not in IT, Sonia, that question around how to do screen sharing, I would work with IT or work with your colleagues about what's the use case, like what do you need to share the screen for? Because I could present my desktop now within Teams really easily and everyone could see my inbox, my screen, my settings. So there are really simple ways of doing this. You could do it in other tech too. So I would ask the team around you, but we can share some stuff in the guides. I'm sure maybe in the team session report that goes out, it would show people how to do it. There are loads of ways, and if you really get stuck, do a WhatsApp call with video or do a FaceTime call and hold your phone up and show someone the screen. But there are loads of ways around this stuff at the moment.
Cool. No, that's excellent. And again, we're starting to get anecdotal stories now in the comment section as well. So people are really going to have a share and taking the time. So we really appreciate that. Well, some of them are really wordy. I've had a couple of essays, which is amazing. So people can see those.
Show that people want to connect, community. This topic's so relevant right now. Yes. Everyone's got learnings. We're all working out as we go along in this new world, and we've got to find ways of making sure that all our clients and our prospects and all the people that we work with and the people that are on the webinar have an opportunity to kind of share these stories.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, and Tom, he's put it back to the customer again, and he said, do businesses need to recognize the areas such as sales are almost wholly about fostering relationships and constant contact? They may need to have a radical approach because they've adopted doing things like Xbox competitions with their customers, which are going down amazingly well. Obviously, this this, it can't be 100% of the time, but it fulfills the objective. It's productive, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, so about connectivity.
That's an amazing.
It's a great idea.
We might steal that idea.
Yeah. But how do you build relationships and maintain relationships with clients, especially if you're in sales or in business development right now? Well, we've got a whole different set of challenges, but a whole different set of kind of tools and ways of doing that. And this is it. It's creativity. It's adapting. It comes back to experimenting. What works, what doesn't, what gets an impact. And you see the stuff that's virally spreading, whether it's on LinkedIn or any other social media, Twitter, any other platform at the moment. These random acts of kindness are awesome as well in terms of connecting with people, but also building and connecting and helping your clients during this period and your customers.
It's paramount.
Really interesting.
Exactly what Rich said.
No one knows what's going to work.
No, so it's just, if you know how, then reach out. We can help. It's about helping people.
Totally.
It's an interesting view on the community, isn't it? That, you know, there's no reason why we couldn't keep coming together as a community and sharing ideas. I think that would be really nice. We'll certainly be asking for feedback after the event. Where, you know, if this is something people are interested in, coming together regularly and sharing what's working and what's not working, and asking for ideas and support. You know, we can all do that together.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I've got a question here. I don't understand it, so it's clearly a tech question, and it isn't rude, so we're okay. But from Paul Jackman. He says, if anyone is using EOS, then 90.io works brilliant in combination with remote working. Is that
EOS is in Entrepreneurial Operating System, or is there a different EOS?
So I think Paul might have to give us more info.
He does need to.
It's the tech version of that.
I think it's the tech version.
What if Paul's telling something? Right, I don't know.
We will work out what the question means and get back to you, Paul.
Awesome.
Thank you. Are we lined up, Steve, anymore?
There is stuff coming in all the time. So
just a quick one while you're looking for that. I rushed home yesterday, and this is just looking at how we're all having to adopt differently to our daily lives and the ways of working. And my daughter Nyla was in a brownie uniform. She just started brownies. And she was doing a brownie promise, so kind of up there, whatever it is, one of them. Anyway.
Start it.
Yeah, no, it's not that then. But anyway, she was doing a brownie promise, but the brown owl was on FaceTime, and that's the first time that she's ever done it that way. And she, you know, so you know they're adapting to this changing world. And they really enjoyed it. You know, she was lovely enough to drop the badges and certificates off. But so my wife passed them to her as she did it all. But again, it's just a different way, and just demonstrates how we've all got to look at the world differently and look at how we help our clients and service people and help our people.
That's a great example.
Yeah, so I mean, we're getting lots of feedback now, but Paul Cochran says that he really likes the idea of the parallels with the customer experience and our, you know, and obviously engaging with our teams as well. So I think that's really important because they can be the same, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I feel really passionate about. Because basically, if you don't align your client experience with your kind of internal people experience, then that for me is where your business kind of falls down in the middle. It's not authentic, and people see through it. So you can have a really fancy brand, you can spend a lot on fancy marketing, but actually if then when a client or customer touches your business in whatever format that is, whether it's a website, social media post, physically, when that's allowed, if that experience they get at that point breaks down and doesn't stand for what they're saying it stands for in the brand, then there's no authenticity there at all. It's not congruent. And for the strongest part, and something we believe strongly in Cooper Parry, we talk about how if you create a great culture and a great people experience internally, not only do you attract and retain the best people, those people give your clients the best possible client experience. And then that creates the business outcomes. And that's a principle that we kind of all work to internally within Cooper Parry. I think super relevant right now, but it has to be authentic because people see through it if not, and it's not sustainable.
No, it's end to end. The products that you deliver to your customers, how you deliver them to your customers, how they interact with you, all of it has to be
the quality of that experience.
Absolutely,
It's awesome. Yeah,
I love that.
Okay, great stuff. So, I think people must have all the answers they want, because I'm now down to my last question. So if I have missed anything, it's my fault, but we will be following up on all of these and we'll send something out to you all afterwards. But this was anonymously sent to us, but it said, we have a strong internal wellbeing offering, but we are struggling to ensure that this can be continued or adapt remotely. We are very interactive. It's very interactive usually, craft sessions, on-site chiropody, etc. Our fitness classes have switched to online, but running at a blank, other than chucking your stuff on your internet. So I think they're just struggling to do a lot of the well-being stuff internally. So I don't know if there's any solutions there.
On Monday at 8 o'clock.
Oh yeah, so we've got virtual yoga starting on Monday, where we haven't experienced it yet, so we'll see how it works. But the level of interest has been quite overwhelming, actually. Where people have gone, actually, yeah, I'm totally up for that. It might mean the dog's doing yoga with me, or the kids are underneath me while I'm trying to do my downward dog. I don't know how effective it will be as a meditation, relaxing yoga session, but we'll see. We'll give it a go.
We've got more attendance, haven't we? Because it's not, people aren't travelling to work. It's 8 a.m. before, in theory, that most people start.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot more people register for a virtual event, but we've never even considered it before.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, we need to think of creative ways to promote the well-being that we're so dear to our hearts here.
Yeah.
We have to find new ways of doing the same thing, but in a virtual environment while everyone's working remotely. It's,
totally.
I think it'll just mean we need to get our imaginations going and see what works.
And
I
saw
a virtual sing-along on the news. That was like lots of people laughing all at the same time. It's just I think just anything to lift people's spirits, because people aren't feeling particularly happy at the moment. So
no.
I think it might go back to what we were talking about before, about that buy-in, about getting people involved. And there's got to be a period of time, isn't there, as people start to see this work and they buy into it more.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners are probably just doing this.
Yeah.
So if they're going to run classes straight away online, they may not get that buy-in because people really haven't seen it in action. Which then we have this question here, which I think ties in with this, and it says, how is culture and purpose going to help my business survive? You know, so if they might be just buying into this now.
Yeah, totally. And like you say, it's changing and adapting every day. And I think people are at different stages of feeling comfortable with it. And first off, it's that oh shit moment of, oh my God, how am I going to run my business like this? How am I going to work like this? How am I going to juggle all of like life's commitments right now with trying to survive and be successful in my business in the way that I'm working. I think that's massively important, but it's changing on a daily basis and everyone's at a different stage. But it goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning around, yes, you can focus on tools and tech, but they're the foundation of what we're talking about. You need those, you really need those right now, but it's about how you actually engage with purpose, creating that kind of that ongoing mission or that cause that people feel like they're going to rally together to actually achieve something greater and get through it together. And that's got to be how purpose is relevant right now. I think it's more relevant than ever to get us through it. But
great stuff. So I think we're going to wrap. I think that we've looked through the questions, and if we've missed some questions, we apologise, but we'll be reviewing them afterwards and getting back to everybody individually where we have. I think it's safe to say our world has changed, and it's going to keep changing. As soon as my kids are around my feet on Monday morning, then I'm going to be looking at things slightly differently, like most of us. But important to work with each other and learn from each other about our experiences, and really open to creating a community for everybody to get involved with that, and looking at the feedback piece. We'll ask for your feedback off the back of this webinar, and we'll run more if you're interested, if you found them useful. Tell us how you'd like to do it differently. That's really important, and we'll address that as well. So I think that's it. Apologies again if we've missed stuff. Abby's going to jump in.
I was just going to jump in. So you'll see on our social media channels and also on our website at the moment, Cooper Parry are doing daily bulletin, a daily summary of the world that's changing, and we're getting all of our experts, our tax experts, our audit experts, corporate finance, to look at what's going on right now for your business, and and what's going on for you personally. So we're looking at that from an individual perspective of you and your own financial situation, and we've got wealth management experts and personal tax experts to help with that, but we're also for your business kind of health right now, and interpreting everything that's changing and everything that's coming out with Boris's daily updates. So I'd really urge you, I'm finding them dead useful personally, because it just distills all the information down there on our social media channel and our website on a daily basis, and I think you'll find those really, really useful if you haven't seen them already.
Thanks, Abby, that's great. I think the biggest lesson for me with all of this is let's not necessarily just let it happen to us and try and cope with it, but face it, and and see how we can embrace the opportunity around what's in front of us, doing things differently with our clients and with our people. And I think if we look at it with those goggles on, rather than just kind of stepping back and I've got to cope, I think we'll come out of this stronger the other side. Finally, thanks to Richard for joining us. Really appreciate your time and your insights. You'll say bye here.
Hey, thanks everybody. Stay safe, and just thank you for the opportunity. And if we can help in any way, just let us know.
Wonderful.
Thanks,
All right.
Richard.
So yeah, thanks everyone for your involvement, and we'll catch you very soon. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.